Stop walking! We need to see your papers right now!
I just got off work. I'm heading home.
Stop right there!
I served in the Army 12 years. I'm a U.S. citizen.
I said stop right there, now!
I need my lawyer.
Grab the strap!
Don't move!
Hands where I can see them!
Hey, easy! Back off, now!
16 seconds later, Marcus was on the ground. Before we show you what happened in those 16 seconds, hit subscribe. Stories like this need witnesses. Marcus Reed wasn't supposed to be on that sidewalk. He was supposed to be in pre-op with Lily holding her hand while nurses prepped her for surgery. The Medal of Honor ceremony had been 3 weeks ago, a combat action in Kandahar that saved 11 men and cost Marcus 2 years of nightmares. He'd pinned the medal to his shirt that morning because Lily asked him to wear it. She called it his brave pin. A man who'd been honored by the president for protecting American lives was about to be put on the ground by American agents for walking to his car. He had no idea. Lily was in Marcus's Honda Civic 20 feet away in the parking lot, 7 years old, watching through the rear window. She'd been born with a congenital heart defect. Today's surgery would repair a valve that had been leaking since birth. Dr. Chen had been clear. Pre-op at 3 o'clock, not 3:05, not 3:10. Marcus had 73 minutes. Victor Castellano had done this 47 times before. Stopped men who looked like they didn't belong. Asked for papers. Made the streets safer, he told himself. His brother Daniel had been killed 6 years ago in Afghanistan. Friendly fire from an Afghan National Army soldier the unit had been training. And ever since then, Castellano saw threats everywhere he looked, especially in faces that reminded him of the ones in his brother's deployment photos. He'd never asked Daniel if the men he served with looked like threats. Today, that would cost him everything. Junho Kim's CCTV camera was recording. Monica Foster's phone was recording. Marcus's phone was recording. Lisa Ramirez's body cam was recording. 4 cameras, 4 angles, everything. Papers, now. I'm a citizen. Prove it. I have my VAIDN, my wallet, Don't reach for anything. Castellano's eyes locked on the pin. The Medal of Honor gleaming in afternoon sun. That doesn't prove citizenship, Castellano said. Anyone can buy a pin. Marcus felt something break inside his chest. Not fear, something colder. This was really happening. Lily pressed her face to the glass. 4 men surrounded Daddy. She couldn't hear the words, but she knew what scared looked like. She'd seen it in the hospital when other kids' parents got bad news from doctors. She unbuckled her seatbelt. Marcus pulled his phone from his pocket. His thumb hit the emergency record function. Castellano's hands shot out, grabbed Marcus's wrist. Marcus pulled back. Not hard, just firm. Don't grab me. Castellano's face changed. The suspicion became something darker. You're resisting a federal officer. Last chance. Turn around, hands behind your back. I'm not resisting, Marcus said. You grabbed me without cause. I've done nothing wrong. Turn around, not until you tell me what I've actually done. Castellano nodded once. Mills moved. Shoulder to chest, full collision. Marcus stumbled back. Didn't fall. Castellano grabbed his shirt. Novak swept his leg. Marcus went down. Hard. Back hit concrete. Thud echoed. The pin ripped from his collar. Metal scraping fabric. Hit the sidewalk with a bright clink. That sound would play in the courtroom 6 months later. Lily screamed. No one heard her. Windows up. She pushed the door open, stumbled out. Monica Foster saw her. Dropped the dog leash, ran. Honey, no, stay here with me. That's my daddy, Lily cried. They're hurting my daddy. 4 cameras caught it. Only 1 caught her face. Castellano's knee drove into Marcus's back. Hand pressed his face into concrete. Mills twisted his arm. Marcus cried out, "Stop moving!" Castellano barked, "I'm not moving!" Marcus gasped, "I'm not moving." Novak stood over him, watching, not touching, not stopping it either. 15 seconds from first contact to face on pavement. Every camera got it. The dry cleaning shop's CCTV angle was brutally clear. Wide shot showing the entire sidewalk. Marcus walking calm, hands in pockets, earbud in one ear. The 4 agents stepping out of the black SUV with government plates. The approach, the surround, the first grab, the takedown. All of it time-stamped frame by frame, undeniable. Monica's phone captured the sound. Marcus's voice muffled against concrete asking what he'd done wrong. Castellano's voice pressing harder, telling him to stop moving when he was already completely still. The scrape of fabric, the clink of the metal, Lily's scream in the background, distant but clear enough to make your chest hurt. Marcus's own phone still recording in his hand when he went down and caught the view from ground level. The shadow of Castellano's knee, the gravel and grit grinding into Marcus's cheek, the angle of Mills twisting his arm behind his back at a position that made tendons scream. The phone had fallen at an angle that showed everything, and the emergency function meant it uploaded to cloud storage in real time, backing up every second, even as the assault continued. Lisa Ramirez's body cam from the backup vehicle 20 feet away showed what the others couldn't. Castellano pointing at Marcus before any interaction, his mouth moving. The audio on her cam picked it up. That one. He looks like the profile. No radio call, no dispatch verification, no tip confirmation. Just Castellano deciding in that moment that Marcus didn't belong on that sidewalk. The cam captured all 4 agents moving in formation, practiced and coordinated like they'd done this before. Because they had. Castellano pulled Marcus to his feet, grabbed him roughly by the arm in the back of his shirt, shoved him toward the SUV. Marcus stumbled. His hands cuffed behind his back threw off his balance. Hayes caught him by the shoulder. Not to steady him, hard enough to jolt him forward. Tate opened the back door. Castellano pushed Marcus toward it. Marcus's head connected with the top of the door frame. Not hard enough to split skin, but hard enough that Marcus's whole body went rigid for a second, his eyes squeezing shut. Monica's video captured the impact from across the street, clear enough to show it wasn't an accident, deliberate enough to look like negligence, at best intentional at worst. Jun-Ho Kim came out of his shop. The Medal of Honor pin was still on the sidewalk. He bent down, picked it up, held it in his palm, looked at the SUV, looked at the cameras, went back inside and made 3 backup copies of his security footage. Then he called 911, not to report an immigration issue, to report an assault. A decorated veteran being taken to the ground on a public sidewalk by federal agents without visible cause. The call was logged at 1:51 p.m. If you believe decorated veterans deserve better than this, leave a comment, because this is just the beginning. Mills cuffed his hands. Metal biting wrists. What are you charging me with? Marcus asked, voice muffled against the pavement. Resisting arrest. Failure to provide identification. I never resisted, Marcus said. I asked for my lawyer. That's my right. Castellano didn't respond. He pulled Marcus to his feet, shoved him toward the SUV. Marcus stumbled. His hands cuffed behind his back threw off his balance. Hayes caught him by the shoulder. Not gentle, rough enough to send a message. The door frame connection, Marcus's skull, sharp crack, 4 angles, 4 recordings, undeniable. The Medal of Honor pin lay on the sidewalk where it had fallen. Jun-Ho Kim walked out of his dry cleaning shop, bent down, picked it up, held it in his palm like it weighed more than metal should. Monica was already on her phone. Federal agents just assaulted a veteran. Her voice shook, but the words came clear. Jun-Ho went back inside and pulled his security footage, made 3 backup copies, one to his personal drive, one to a thumb drive he kept in his safe, one uploaded to cloud storage he paid for specifically because he'd seen too many important recordings disappear. Lisa Ramirez sat in the backup vehicle 20 feet away. She checked her body cam, still running. She didn't turn it off. 1:51 p.m., 4 minutes from first contact to the SUV pulling away from the curb. Marcus had 69 minutes to get Lily to surgery. Dr. Sarah Chen pulled into the parking lot 8 minutes later. She saw Lily standing on the sidewalk with a woman she didn't recognize. A small child. Alone. She parked fast and ran over. "Where's your father?" Lily pointed down the street. "Empty now. No SUV, no men, no daddy." "They took him," Lily said. "The men took him." Dr. Chen looked at Monica. "What happened, federal agents?" "They put him on the ground. Arrested him. I don't know why." Dr. Chen checked her watch. 2:04 p.m. She pulled out her phone and called the surgery center. "We have to reschedule. The father's been detained. The patient is 7 years old. She can't consent alone. The scheduler checked the calendar. Next available slot is 4 days out. 4 days. Lily's mitral valve was leaking worse every day. The longer they waited, the higher the risk of permanent damage to her heart muscle. A 16-second assault on a public sidewalk just added 4 days to a child's suffering. The ICE field office was 23 minutes away. During that drive, Marcus sat in the back of the SUV, hands cuffed, the bruise already forming on the side of his face where Castellano's hand had pressed him into concrete, a raw scrape on his cheek still stinging, the dull ache spreading through his back where Castellano's knee had driven in. He didn't speak unless spoken to. He'd spent enough time in the military to know when talking made things worse. They took him into a small room. Concrete block walls painted beige, metal table, 2 chairs, fluorescent lights that buzzed slightly. Castellano sat across from him, a manila folder open in front of him. Marcus could see it contained almost nothing. A single printed page. Looked like an online tip. Anonymous. No verified information. Name. Marcus Reed. Date of birth. Marcus gave it. Month, day, year, place of birth. San Antonio, Texas. Military service. United States Army. 12 years. Honorably discharged. Rank at discharge. Staff Sergeant. Medal of Honor recipient. Castellano wrote it down, his expression giving nothing away. We're going to verify all of this. If anything doesn't check out, you're looking at harboring charges on top of everything else. There's nothing to check out, Marcus said, his voice flat. Everything I told you is true. You can pull my service record in about 30 seconds. You could have done that on the sidewalk instead of putting me on the ground. Castellano's jaw tightened. He didn't respond. He stood up and left the room. The door locked behind him with a heavy click. Marcus sat alone in the fluorescent buzz for 11 minutes. The verification call to the Department of Defense took that long. Honorably discharged Staff Sergeant Marcus Reed, born San Antonio, Texas, United States citizen by birth, 12 years of service, including 2 combat deployments to Afghanistan. Medal of Honor recipient for actions on October 14, 2019. A military record that was completely clean. Every single word Marcus had said was true. By the time Castellano got that confirmation, it was 2:27 p.m. Lily's surgery had already been postponed. Linda Vasquez walked into the interrogation room at 2:38 p.m. She was Castellano's supervisor, 15 years with ICE. She'd seen bad stops before. She'd covered for agents before. But she read the Department of Defense verification on her tablet and looked at Castellano with something between disbelief and rage. Release him. Now, he resisted. Castellano started. There's footage from 3 cameras. Vasquez cut him off. He's a decorated veteran. He's a citizen. Medal of Honor recipient. Release him and pray nobody's posted that footage yet. It had been online for 8 minutes. Monica Foster had uploaded her video at 1:54 p.m., 17 minutes after the assault. She'd posted it to 3 platforms simultaneously. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Caption simple. Federal agents assault Army veteran on public sidewalk. No charges, no cause. Watch. Jun-Ho Kim had sent his CCTV footage to 2 local news stations by 2:07 p.m. He'd also sent it to the local ACLU chapter and a civil rights attorney whose card he kept behind the counter. Marcus's phone recording had completed its cloud backup at 2:11 p.m. while he was still sitting in that fluorescent room answering questions about his birthplace. By 2:30 p.m., Monica's video had 4,000 views. By 4 p.m., 140,000. By the time the evening news hit at 6 p.m., it was national coverage. CNN, MSNBC, Fox. All of them playing the same footage. The metal hitting the ground, the knee in the back, the head hitting the doorframe. The cameras didn't just record, they broadcast. Marcus was released at 2:49 p.m. No charges filed, no paperwork, no explanation beyond a terse statement from Vasquez that said there had been a misunderstanding regarding the target of an ongoing investigation. No apology, no acknowledgement of what had been done to him. He walked out of the field office into the bright afternoon, his wrists raw from the cuffs. His cheek scraped raw from the concrete, the dull ache in his back spreading into his ribs. He stood in the parking lot for a long time, just breathing. Then he took out his phone and called his sister, Patricia. "They put me on the ground," he said. His voice didn't break. It was quieter than that, heavier. 4 of them, on the sidewalk, for walking home. Patricia, a nurse who lived 2 towns over, was on the phone with a civil rights attorney before the call ended. That evening, Agent Lisa Ramirez walked into Linda Vasquez's office. She set her body cam on the desk. "You need to see this. I was in the backup vehicle. My cam caught everything from the moment Castellano spotted him." Vasquez played the footage. The body cam showed the interior of the SUV, showed Castellano in the passenger seat pointing at Marcus through the windshield before Marcus even noticed the vehicle. The audio was clear. "That one. He looks like the profile." Mills in the driver's seat. "What's the tip say, Castellano?" "Doesn't matter. He fits." No tip confirmation, no radio call to dispatch, no database check, no probable cause. Just Castellano deciding in that moment that Marcus didn't belong on that sidewalk. Pure profiling. This wasn't rogue behavior. It was policy. The FBI opened a civil rights investigation 48 hours later. They pulled Castellano's personnel file, 14 years with ICE, 47 stops in the last 18 months alone, 44 of them men of color, 41 resulted in no charges filed, 0 had proper documentation of probable cause. The pattern was undeniable. They pulled training records, they pulled internal communications. What they found was worse. Internal ICE training documents surfaced during discovery, a checklist distributed to field agents, behavioral indicators for potential immigration violations, avoiding eye contact, nervous demeanor, non-Western appearance, lack of immediate compliance. The checklist didn't mention actual legal standards, didn't reference reasonable suspicion or probable cause. It taught agents to profile and intimidate. A former ICE trainer, dismissed 2 years earlier for objecting to the protocols, testified later. "We weren't taught to verify, we were taught to intimidate." The goal wasn't accuracy, it was numbers, stops, detentions, deportations, metrics. Marcus Reed wasn't the first veteran profiled and assaulted by federal agents. He wasn't the first citizen put on the ground for walking while brown. He was just the first with 4 cameras recording from 4 different angles and an internet connection fast enough to make the footage go viral before the agents who did it finished their shift. Should federal agencies face mandatory audits after viral assault footage? Comment your thoughts. The grand jury heard evidence for 3 weeks. 4 camera angles played frame by frame. Every second of the 16-second assault broken down and analyzed. Junho Kim testified, "I've seen 40 people walk that sidewalk every day for 6 years. No one's ever been stopped. Not once." Monica Foster testified, "He was walking, just walking, hands in his pockets, earbuds in, going to his car." Dr. Sarah Chen testified, "My patient suffered complications because her father was illegally detained. We had to postpone critical heart surgery by 4 days. Every day that valve leaked, her heart muscle deteriorated." A medical expert walked the jury through Marcus's injuries: concussion from the impact with the door frame, bruised kidney from sustained pressure of the knee in his back, deep facial abrasions from being pressed into concrete, psychological trauma documented in both father and daughter through clinical evaluation and therapy records. The grand jury indicted all 4 agents. Deprivation of rights under color of law. Castellano and Mills faced additional charges of assault causing bodily injury. The badges didn't protect them this time. The trial started 6 weeks later in federal court. The prosecution's opening was simple. They held up the Medal of Honor pin. Junho had returned it to Marcus the day after the assault. Marcus had given it to the prosecution as evidence. The prosecutor stood in front of the jury box. "Listen." The footage played on the courtroom screens. All 4 angles synchronized. The audio clear. The ripping sound of the pin tearing from Marcus's collar. The bright clink when it hit the concrete. That's the sound of America dishonoring a man who bled for her. The jury will remember that sound. They did. Marcus took the stand on the 3rd day of trial. He sat straight in the witness chair. His posture, military even in civilian clothes. He answered every question with the same calm, precise delivery he'd used his entire service career. The prosecutor walked him through the encounter step by step. When Agent Castellano grabbed your wrist, did you resist in any way? No. Why not? Marcus paused, not for effect, because the question deserved thought. Because I've spent 12 years in combat zones. I know what escalation looks like. I knew that fighting back would give them an excuse to use more force. And I knew that I hadn't done anything wrong. So I stayed calm and tried to understand what was happening. The prosecutor let that sit for a moment. Mr. Reed, your daughter was watching from your car 20 feet away. Did you know that at the time? Not at first, but yes, I realized it when they put me on the ground, and that changed how you responded. Marcus looked directly at the jury. I didn't want her to see her father be the kind of man who fights when he's scared. I wanted her to see the kind of man who stays calm even when the system fails him. Two jurors cried. The rest sat perfectly still, absorbing every word. Competence porn at its finest. The defense tried to argue self-defense, improper procedure. The prosecution dismantled it in cross-examination. Agent Castellano took the stand on day 7. The prosecutor didn't waste time. Agent Castellano, in the 16 seconds between your first verbal command and the physical assault, did you attempt to verify Mr. Reed's identity through any official database number? Did you contact the Department of Defense to check his military service claim number? Did you run his name through dispatch number? So you went from asking for papers to putting a decorated veteran on the ground in less than 20 seconds without checking a single thing he told you. Objection. Sustained. Let me rephrase. Did you see the Medal of Honor on Mr. Reed's collar? Castellano paused. Yes, and you still believed he might be in the country illegally. Anyone can buy a pin. The prosecutor held up the actual Medal of Honor. This medal isn't sold in stores, Agent Castellano. It's awarded by Congress for conspicuous gallantry in combat. You know that? Silence. The prosecutor shifted. Agent Castellano, you lost your brother Daniel in Afghanistan. Is that correct? Castellano's face changed. Yes. Did your brother serve alongside Afghan interpreters, Iraqi allies? Yes. Men who looked like Mr. Reed Long. Silence. Yes. Do you think your brother would want you to dishonor his sacrifice by assaulting a fellow veteran on a public sidewalk? Castellano's face cracked. Not tears. Something harder. Realization settling in that he couldn't undo. He had no answer. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. The verdict came back as the afternoon sun started to dip. Judge Robert Ashworth's courtroom filled with that golden, late-day light that always feels strange against heavy things. The foreman stood, guilty, all 4 defendants on every count. Marcus sat in the gallery still and quiet. Lily, now 8 years old, sat next to him holding his hand. She didn't fully understand everything happening, but she understood that the men who hurt her daddy were in trouble. Justice doesn't always roar. The sentencing hearing was 2 weeks later. Judge Robert Ashworth had spent 30 years on the federal bench. He'd seen every kind of case imaginable. He read the pre-sentencing reports, reviewed the footage one more time, listened to victim impact statements. Marcus's statement was short. He stood at the podium, spoke in the same measured tone he'd used on that sidewalk. I gave 12 years to this country. I went where I was told to go. I did what I was told to do. I put my life on the line for people I'd never meet. I came home and I tried to build something. A life. A family. And on a Wednesday afternoon, 4 agents of the federal government put me on the ground on a public sidewalk because they looked at me and decided I didn't belong here. He paused. If this sentence means anything, it has to mean this stops, not just for veterans. For everyone. He wasn't asking for himself. Judge Ashworth sentenced all 4 agents to 5 years each in federal prison. No probation, no suspended portions. 5 years to be served in full beginning immediately. Castellano's face went white when the sentence was read. Mills closed his eyes. Novak stared straight ahead, expressionless. Hayes, the youngest, looked like he might be sick. They were taken into custody that afternoon. Their badges and weapons surrendered before they left the courtroom. 5 years for 16 seconds of unjustified violence on a public sidewalk. 5 years later, Castellano would still hear the metal hit the ground every night in his cell. The civil lawsuit settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. Sources close to the case said it was significant enough to set Marcus and Lily up for years. But Marcus didn't disappear after the settlement. The leaked training manual had triggered a Department of Justice review of ICE training protocols nationwide. Racial profiling complaints dropped 67% in 18 months. Body cameras became mandatory for all field operations. Supervisor review became required for every stop exceeding 5 minutes. Lisa Ramirez received a formal commendation for reporting misconduct. She was promoted to the training division and personally rewrote the field manual. One body cam changed an entire agency. Lily's surgery happened 4 days late. Complications developed during recovery. She spent an extra week in the ICU, but she recovered. The scar on her chest faded to a thin line. The nightmares about men taking daddy lasted 6 months before they finally stopped. Marcus and Lily went to family counseling for a year, working through the trauma of that day and everything that came after. Marcus started the Metal on the Ground Foundation 18 months after the trial. Veterans who'd been racially profiled could call and get connected with free legal support. Year 1, they handled 47 cases. Year 3, over 200 cases with $1.2 million in funding. Victory has costs. Legacy has roots. Marcus walks past that sidewalk sometimes. He doesn't slow down, doesn't look at the spot where he went down, just keeps walking the same way he was walking that Wednesday. Lily's 10 now, her heart's strong. She asks questions about that day. Marcus answers truthfully, age-appropriately, honestly. The Medal of Honor pin is framed in their living room. Next to it, a photo of Lily's first day back at school after her surgery. Joon Ho Kim's CCTV camera still records that sidewalk 24 hours a day. He checked the footage every single day for 2 years. Now just once a week. Monica Foster still walks her dog on that block. Sometimes she sees Marcus. They nod. He nods back. No words needed. The sidewalk has no plaque, no marker. Nothing to indicate that anything significant happened there. Just concrete. Just cameras. Just truth. 4 cameras record 16 seconds that change 5 lives permanently. 4 federal agents, 5 years each in prison. 1 decorated veteran vindicated. 1 7-year-old daughter trauma that became testimony. 1 entire system forced to change. Cameras don't stop injustice, but they make denial impossible. If you believe that military service, citizenship, and basic human dignity deserve protection from the people sworn to defend them, subscribe and turn on notifications. Tomorrow we're bringing you another story where the camera caught what they thought no one would see. Because truth doesn't need volume, it just needs witnesses. The metal hitting concrete. Faint. Haunting. That sound echoes still.